Welcome back. Now, Friday the 16th was International Day of the Boy Child. If you didn't know that was the situation, you are not alone. A lot of people didn't know that. And it's probably going to inform our last conversation today about, this talk about how boys and men are supposedly being forgotten in conversations and, what that means for the future. I'm joined here now by Ayotunde Fabanwo, who's an entrepreneur and a filmmaker. Thanks a lot for being here today.
Thank you for having me, Ebuka.
Is that a fact, though, that the boy child has become relegated in these conversations? Because there's this running joke about how many Women's Day there are, how many Mother's Days there are, how many days of the girl child there are.
Yeah.
So it almost looks like the boy has become a pariah. Is that a fact?
Yes, I think it is a fact. We have unintentionally just sort of put the male child in the dark while we focused a lot on women issues and what women feel. And we forget that, feelings, emotions is not gender-based. Anyone can feel any of those things. And yes, so it wasn't intentional, but yes, it is a fact that the male gender has been sort of in the dark side, and that's why people make those subtle comments. You know how they say, like, from a little joke you can tell when someone is serious. I think that's what's been happening, and that was a way for men to sort of say we also want to be heard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the fix for this, though? Because you find that this podcast culture now, there's become sort of a wave of sort of pro-masculine, podcasters.
Yeah.
A lot of people argue that it's gone too far right. You have the Andrew Tates, you have the Joe Rogans, who promote this sort of version of what a man should be, and it borders sometimes even on just being completely toxic.
Yeah.
There's the argument that, well, you have to go that far so that people sort of pay attention and, then find a balance. I don't know if that's a fact. But what's the fix for this? Are conversations helping? Are there even room? Is there even room for conversations? Because women will also tell you, yes, there's all of this celebration of women, but we're still far behind.
Yeah. So I think the first thing we need to do is to celebrate masculine emotions. I think that's the first thing. So when people come out to talk about how they feel, we shouldn't shame them, because that's one of the reasons why men wouldn't talk. So if as a guy you are being abused verbally or physically and you talk to your friends about it or your family, people would usually just put you aside and go, so it's not serious. Because right from a very young age, when you show a little bit of emotion as a boy, people say things like, act like a man, no be man you be. All those subtle, messages to say, oh, you have to be strong. And people forget that you can be strong.
But shouldn't man be strong, though? So where do you find that balance?
Well, yeah, you can be strong and soft.
Vulnerability is nice.
Yeah.
And you just wonder, where's the balance between being vulnerable and also, not being, because it's indoctrinated, like you said, for so long that you now want to, I don't know, is there even a need for balance?
I think
shouldn't you just be vulnerable even? Like, I don't know what's the right way to do it.
Right. I think that there can be balance, so you can be strong and you can be soft. And that way you're able to be an emotionally available adult, which is which is lacking, in today's culture. And that's why you realize that for men, it's even from subtle pictures that you see on the wall, when they want to draw a man, they would draw him with muscles and, and six packs and all of that. And that's just a subtle message that says you have to be strong. But you can be strong, soft, emotionally available, and that just makes you a better human. And once you sort of are able to express yourself as a man, say, oh, this is how I feel, and just pretty much to say to men, emotions are validated, really. Yeah.
I think, when you talk to a lot of guys, you find that a safe space is actually what doesn't exist a lot for men. You talk to guys, they laugh at you. This one, a weak guy. You don't also particularly want to maybe come across as weak to the women. So maybe that's also not. So is it men that need to change, the way we think About what vulnerability means.
And I think it's everyone, really, because like you rightly said, even women expect that men have to be strong. If a woman, for example, wants to pick a box from the top of a shelf, she can do it with her own strength. But once there's a man around, she's like, oh yeah, please, could you just, help me do that? And if you ask why, there's just a very basic answer, because you're a man, right? So let's have conversations around men and being emotionally available, having to validate their emotions. Or because I say, oh, I feel hurt, or I'm talking about being abused, doesn't necessarily mean I'm weak.
Yeah.
There are various other ways to show I'm strong. It doesn't have to be about just my presentation or my emotions.
Tell me about this film, Unheard.
Right, Unheard is a movie about Ugo, who was domestically abused by his wife, physically, verbally. And so it's really just a movie that's saying, you know what, even guys go through all of this, but it's okay to speak up and to pretty much tell people what you're going through. So at the end of the movie, Ugo actually sort of killed himself based off of all the other things that had happened. He tried to talk to his mom, tried to talk to his friends. But again, no one's really listening to him. So at the end of the day, yeah. So that's...
Do you find that that's common? Men who are abused?
Oh.
And I guess the second part of that is the culture of silence around that.
Yeah.
People tell you that, how do you even tell the police, my wife did beat me? It's almost like...
Yeah.
And that's also part of the problem. How does a man come out to say, I'm being abused at home?
Right.
Those conversations seem very, very hard. Or are they even that hard? Are we just making it hard?
I think we are just making it hard, to be honest. And does it happen? I think it happens more often than we would like to think. You would look, so in the course of this short movie, we sort of, had to research within, so we spoke to 100 married men. And out of the 100 married men that we spoke to, 45 were verbally abused, almost on a daily basis. And then only about 10 admitted to be physically abused. And we feel the only reason why is because every other person didn't want to admit that they were being, physically abused at home. And so having a conversation, not just having a conversation around it, I think celebrating it is also, because when, as a guy, you see other guys who have spoken out, being celebrated rather than shamed, it will give you more confidence to say, oh yeah, this is what I'm going through. And also we need women to join in the conversation as well, to allow the men in their lives be able to talk and express themselves.
Yeah. I think, the one thing I know that is a consensus amongst a lot of people is the fact that this sort of teaching has to start from the home, from when the boy is young, and so that they grow up with this, being nurtured that way already. And it brings me back to the talk about balance, On the one hand, yes, you want to raise a child who's sensitive enough, who's vulnerable, who understands, just vulnerability and the fact that it's not necessarily weakness. But you also want to raise up a strong man who can survive, who can provide, and all those things that, men, whether for good or bad, expected to do. Is that a possible thing, to raise a man who's strong and vulnerable?
Yes, it's very possible. And like you rightly said, from a very young age, it's necessary for parents and guardians, uncles and aunties, to sort of teach kids to be able to be strong, but at the same time also say to them, even as a guy, yeah, it's okay for you to cry, it's okay for you to show emotion, but remember that as a man as well, you can also be strong and soft at the same time. Because like I said earlier, what is really lacking is on emotionally available adults, which is really affecting a lot of the things. It's very subtle, but you can see it. Even in Lagos, for example, when you want to approach a guy to ask for directions, you have to first say, I beg, no vexo. Because either way, if you do something else, they just come at you with this, mini aggression. And so it's subtle, but it's there. And I feel like it's a way for guys to say, we want to be heard, we want to be listened. Yes, we're strong and all of that, but we want to occasionally show emotion.
Yeah. Unheard is a short film, you said?
Yes, it is a short
film. What made you want to do it?
Right. So, I run a male contest where we have like very macho guys, Mr. Ideal, and
that's a male pageant.
Yeah, it's a male pageant, and in the course of the interviews, you realize that even those guys are looking all muscled and macho, they actually have a lot of emotions and baggage from when they were, younger. And so we decided to do a research and figure out, okay, emotion, masculinity, how does it correlate? And one thing that topped that was domestic violence. People were verbally abused by their girlfriends, by their wives, and we wanted to sort of talk about that. And it was May, so May is Mental Health Month, and it was the perfect time to sort of screen the movie.
What do you hope this achieves?
Say that again?
What do you hope this achieves?
Conversations around domestic violence in men. People don't, even when we presented the short movie, people are like, do men go through all of that? And yes, they do. But people shy away from that fact. No one wants to touch it. And so we're hoping that, we're pushing it out to film festivals in Nigeria and outside Nigeria as well. And we're hoping that people would kind of, gradually start to see the African man as not just strong, but also someone that can be soft and emotionally available.
So if I want to see it now, I can't see it yet?
No, you can't.
You're still mizing it?
Yeah, we're stimizing it. Yes.
Thank you very much once again. The International Day of the Boy Child was on Friday the 16th. Happy International Day of the Boy Child to all the boys and men out there, especially those who have been sort of inculcated into this culture of silence. And we just hope that everybody finds a space that's safe enough for them to interact. Thanks a lot, Ayatunde, for being here today.